A note to our listeners. The views and opinions expressed by our guests and hosts on the BLKFLA podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the official positions or views of any organizations, companies, or affiliations they may be associated with. Any statements made are personal opinions and should not be construed as representing their respective employers or organizations. As always, thanks for listening.
If revolution was a movie, I'd be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is lighter fluid. Stepping into it, fixed ways, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the revolution.
Welcome to the BLKFLA experience. We are the cultural archive for the Black political movement in the state of Florida, where our purpose is to help you reimagine a Florida where Black people are able to live in freedom, equity, and authenticity. I'm your host, as always, Jamil Davis, and my other hosts alongside me.
It's DJ Hale, the one and only.
Listen, like, we here. We're doing all the great things. And so we're going to take this time to dive into all things Black politics and Black culture. Let's get into it. So, April 18th of this year.
17th for me.
Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Ryan. Slight flex. Slight flex with those Thursday evening people. April 18th, we were met with a movie that I'm going to go ahead and call it right now. Is the best movie to come out this year. I feel like there's not going to be any other movie that's going to come out this year that's going to be better than this one. Should receive all the nominations that it can possibly receive. Should possibly win most, if not all, of the awards that it's nominated for. That it can win. Ryan Coogler, story director from the Bay Area, or as the kids like to say, the Yay area. Oakland to be exact. Director of such phenomenal pieces of art as Fruitvale Station, Black Panther 1 and 2, and director of The First Creed, and writer and executive producer for all three Creed movies, as well as executive producer of Judas and the Black Messiah. Judas and the Black Messiah, executive producer for Judas and the Black Messiah. He has brought us all of these wonderful, enriching pieces of art, has decided to bless us with a Southern vampire experience known as Sinners, with an incredible ensemble cast that includes Ryan's friend and mine, Michael Bakari Jordan. The incomparable and awesome, Delroy Lindo. Miles Caton, in his first ever film. We're going to really dig a lot into that one. We're going to dig a lot to the fact that this was this brother's first ever film, and I feel like you wouldn't even know it. Haley Steinfeld, Wunmi Mosaku. I just feel like that's the only thing that you have to say.
AKA me. I felt, okay. Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's the only thing that you have to say.
Don't forget Omar Miller, Cornbread.
For all the Black women that need to be seen.
And don't forget about that chocolate queen, Jamie Lawson, either.
Listen.
Jamie Lawson. Woo.
Listen, and Jack O'Connell as the Irish-bred vampire antagonist, Remick. So, Sinners is set in 1932, where identical twins and World War I veterans Smoke and Stack returns to Clarksdale, Mississippi, after years and years of working for Italian bred and born Al Capone up in Chicago. They decided to come back home to Clarksdale, Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta, where they took it upon themselves to purchase a nice little piece of property for a juke joint called Club Juke. Upon the first night of said juke joint to be open, they encounter a visit from an Irish-bred individual by the name of Remick, who we later find out is the vampire that sparks up this whole entire show. So, today, here on BLKFLA, the podcast, we want to dig into a lot of the greatness that is Sinners. We also want to put this out in the atmosphere. If you have not yet seen Sinners, first off, what's wrong with you? I just, don't really know and don't understand at this point, because at the time of this recording, we already in the weekend 2 of said film, and the film has already grossed. Film's already grossed 121 million domestically and 163 million internationally. So at this point, the brothers already made his. Warner Brothers already made the budget back. It's just cake and money in over here. So, but if you have not yet seen this movie, shame on you, and don't watch this episode until you do, because spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So if you're on right now and you have not yet seen the movie, we're gonna give you a couple of seconds to hop off, like and share with your friends that already have, and follow us on BLKFLA, the podcast. Once again, BLKFLA, the podcast. Follow us there, because we're gonna give a lot of things away.
What I like is how you gave the synopsis and then the disclaimer. So
that's it.
Folks like, wait, you just broke down the whole plot. What is
most of that you saw in the trailer. So if you haven't seen the trailer, then you've pretty much been living under a rock for the last 4 or 5 months, give or take. So joining us for this wonderful extravaganza known as our Sinners Review is from Florida Rising and former Florida State Senator, the incredible and incomparable, Dwight Bullard, Philly's own, and Senior Policy Manager of Black Voters Matter, Florida's own, and of course, Memphis's own, Ryan Wagner. All right, guys. Let's get into this.
Want to make a note real quick. Why are we making noises? Okay. I want to make a note because I forgot Ryan is Memphis home. Because as I sat down, Clarksdale, Mississippi is where my granny was born. And my granny ended up growing up in Memphis. And I was talking to my Philly fiance and telling him Memphis ain't nothing but a country ass Chicago. And I was like, it's a Mississippi, Chicago. The route going up is right there. My people from Memphis used to go down to the casino in Mississippi all the time just for fun. And I just want to make a note that this story and the lineage of it, and as soon as I said that, they was like, oh, they came down from Chicago. I was like, look at all of the pieces just fitting together geographically and diasporically.
Morgan Freeman is also from and still lives in Clarksdale.
I did not know he still lives in Clarksdale.
Uh-huh.
That's amazing. So yeah, shout out to Clarksdale, where some of my hoodoo ancestry actually starts out on my mama's side.
Shout out to Miss Ray. Listen, I like listen, you learn something. I keep telling y'all learn something new every day with the people that you love. So first things first that we are going to do, we are going to go around the room, if you will, and get everybody's first knee-jerk reaction after stepping out of this work of art. I'm gonna start with the Memphis Queen, Rhyane. I'm gonna start with Ryan.
I clutched my pearls because I was like, ooh, we giving grown folk business on level 10. It was giving Bridgerton episode 6. It started right away. I was like, come on, Black Love. But I clocked the music from the trailer, and I just knew in my spirit that Ryan did his homework. Like I said, I was Memphis born and raised. We were taught the stories about Robert Johnson and the Devil at the Crossroads, among other, grew up. I didn't necessarily gravitate towards blues music, but I had a respect for it. So seeing Buddy Guy at the end really pleased my soul. Bobby Rush is on the soundtrack. Like, it was giving me From Dusk Till Dawn, the way it was shot. Very Robert Rodriguez, except there's no strip club. If you haven't seen Dusk Till Dawn by now, come on. The movie's 30 years old. Come on, people.
It really is.
It was so many layers. It reminded me of Jordan Peele films where there's social commentary to it. Yes, it's horror on the surface, but it's so much deeper than that. Because white supremacy is scary, ain't it? Structural oppression is scary, ain't it? In the ways in which Black people had to navigate that environment on a regular basis. And so music and juke joints, if you will, sugar shacks, had to be where we found some sort of peace and some sort of respite. And just like, I had relatives that would come to Memphis during the summer from Michigan. My folks are in Detroit too, and would come see my great grandmother and vice versa. And that migration was very real for us. And on both sides of my family, having that Mississippi blood is I can't. It was Lovecraft country too. I just absolutely, it didn't dumb down its Southern characters, which I appreciate. A lot of times Hollywood relies on stereotypes and tropes that they need to just do away with in general. But indigenous communities as vampire hunters, I really appreciated that. The small Chinese communities in Mississippi that were the grocery store owners, that was very real.
Yes.
They would, the corner store, grocery stores, bodega, whatever you want to call it. I just came away with he literally captured every single thing about that era and how it's connected to now. Given the environment that we're in politically, the attacks on our history, the threats to the Black Smithsonian in DC and other museums, as a result of the man in the White House, aka Fat Nixon's attacks on the overall library and museum systems. So it was timely. Smoke's love interest being this full healed Black woman, dark skin, and shout out to the folks that recognized that was not his mom, because there was a lot of that going on. She was his full on love interest, y'all. And she was Hoodoo, Louisiana. I can't. He did his fucking homework, y'all. Even the Celtic dancing and the and the banjos. Like whew. It was just, I don't know. I'm speechless, and I'm rarely speechless because I'm very particular about my horror movies. But it was so much more than that.
It was extremely more than that. Extremely more than that. Haley.
Leaving out. So I'm a DJ. I am super invested in what Black joy is and the nuance of it, right? Like there is a particular line that we cross where we're using Black joy as just an escape. And also as a distraction to get ourselves out of. And so the one visual that stuck with me as I'm walking out is we over here inside this burning house getting down, and the devils is just watching, waiting to come in. Like we line dancing, we fan popping, we having a great time. And there is duality in that, right? Like,
right.
But we also have to stay ready. And then of course it was the onslaught of like Hoodoo heritage and the protection. Like the hero in this, I don't care what nobody say, the hero was Annie. And he saved everybody, even being like, hey, why you asking to get up in this house? You've been walking your big ass in here all day.
Who all over there? She said, who all over there? Okay.
Like, oh, okay. I was texting one of my best friends. Shout out to Lisa May, who is Black and Chinese. And I was like, why she had been waiting on me to watch this movie. I was like, why didn't you tell me the first country ass Chinese person we see is named Lisa? Because that's so cute to me. But I think that it gave her a lot of pride, and it gave me a lot of pride. And I'm like, wow, doing your homework, looking at it, and in the sense of like the span of the folks that are a part of this. And everything keeps going back to this one scene, which this is why I hope we have sequels, prequels. I'm haunted by the thought of music, because I'm an Afrofuturist, the thought of music being a way to time travel and bridge gaps and open up barriers. And I think about possession in the way of spirituality. And that's what keeps me up at night. And that's what I've been sitting at my desk at work thinking about, is this visual of people from generations all dancing together in this fucking burning house, and how we've just always been in it.
America's a burning house, isn't it?
America is a freaking burning house.
Listen. Woo.
Yep.
That's a word. That's a word right there. Like I'm seeing it for the first time, and not really reading too many like spoilers or Easter eggs about it. When you see the burning house, it's like, bro, like this is like the living embodiment of the roof. The roof is on fire.
Yep.
You know, I was like, what is?
And it totally could have been like, he could have literally been trying to say that, but the way it registered in my spirit is like, we just in this house.
Yes.
Just trying to stay as happy as we possibly can.
And was it Eddie Barnes painting?
Yes, exactly.
From Good Times. I remember from Good Times.
That's exactly what it looked like. It looked like that with a diverse twist.
Yeah.
And a burning building around it. That's all. That's exactly what it looked like. And it haunts me. I love horror. So I'm I feel like all good horror has a social message to it.
The vampires were colonizers, weren't they?
The vampires were colonizers.
Like, if you think about it, you had to make a choice. Lesser of two evils, if you will. I can either become immortal and assimilate.
Yep.
Or choose my current path, which, isn't freedom either, is it?
No.
But I need to protect our culture. This need to protect things that are so very uniquely African American, Black diaspora. It comes with a cost.
Dwight.
Yeah, so plus to everything that's already been said. For me, first reaction, I'm going to call my 4H reaction. The movie was historical, it was horror, it was humor, and it was horny as hell. And I was here for all four of the H's. Like
I said, Bridgerton.
Like I said, it was just
every time.
like one of the comments about the movie that I saw was like, the movie's just so horny. And so when I went in, I was like, what do they like? I was going in, I was thinking, what do they mean by it? And then you're about 30 minutes in, and you're like, this movie is super horny. And what I mean by that is like, it wasn't overtly sexual. It wasn't explicit. It was provocative and enticing in that type of way. Where it kind of just left you like, yo.
Pearls clutched. Yeah.
Right. So, but I just want to what I appreciate about Ryan Coogler is the depth of his research. Like, speaking as a history guy, like I saw one interview recently and I was just like, and it was him and Michael B. Jordan. And the interviewer just asked the question, why twins? Right? And him going in to say, well, in Yoruba practices, there are these twin deities that we have to reconcile with. And I was just like, yo, and the thing about the twin deities that people don't appreciate is the twin deities are representative across the African diaspora. And I'm gonna step on a few Christian toes here. It predates the Cain and Abel story.
I'm about to be like, please do.
Right. And so
they toes about to get stepped on in a little bit.
I get it. And it's like, but like understanding that level of depth, that there was just an African movie. And so I know we're going to talk about it more over the course of the conversation, but for me, it reminded me of like New Orleans, right? In this regard, like New Orleans is an African city, right? And people don't, when I say that, people are like, what you mean? It's like, I don't think you get it. Like, jazz begins at Congo Square as a liberatory music amongst a mixture of both the enslaved and the free. Right? We talk about this connection of music. It's all the things, right? Like, music has told our story from the very beginning, and to Hale's point, speaks to the future as well, like at every point. And what I don't think people fully appreciate about a juke joint, or that juke joint in particular, is that for every genre of so-called American music, it begins at a juke joint. Like blues, jazz, rock and roll, and let's even get even further into R&B and hip hop, still get the equivalent of a juke joint energy in terms of their beginning.
Absolutely.
So people don't like, and that's the thing about Ryan Coogler. He used to be like, bro, like, because they said conceptually this movie was something he'd been sitting on for 4 years, right? And so for him to like introduce this to the world, it's almost like when rappers talk about it took me a lifetime to write my first album.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, he did Fruitvale because that was somebody else's story.
Mm-hmm.
He did Creed and Black Panther as someone else's story because you have like a template to follow. For him to do this, it was him like picking different parts. And he said he like, you know, it really was birthed in him with his uncle, who was a big blues head, and then just being able to pull all that together. So it was amazing. I hope people fully appreciate the artistry for what it is.
I wanted to stick a pin too, and thinking about Elijah and Elias is the same person. Like, it's just the name in a different format. And for him to go that deep to make sure that there was mention of that, of them being a prophet. So which side is the prophet on? Like, this. Elijah heard. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let we all preaching folks around here. Come on.
Listen, like I said, we about to really dig for real. My first reaction walking out of the theater was the most quintessential scene in this entire movie is the Preacher Boy Sammy scene when he's playing the song. And in order to really catch it and capture what Ryan was trying to see, you have to see it in IMAX. Like, you can see it any other, like, you watch the movie any other way, but to capture that scene alone, you have to see it in IMAX. Because the second time I saw it was in IMAX. And when that scene came on, I was just like,
I'm trying to tell you.
I was like, what is this? But I still had the same feeling as when I saw it the first time. I was like, and Haley can attest to this. I have been saying to people for years that hip hop culture is nothing more than what African culture was supposed to evolve into. And Ryan Coogler literally showed it on screen. I'm just like, so the thing that no one really caught also was how the movie began, and that he tells you about griots and what griots are. And it's very much needed for the rest of the film, because I've seen this take on social media. What I'm about to say right now, I've seen this take on social media, and I kind of agree with it. The central main characters in the movie are not Smoke and Stack.
No.
The central character in the movie is Sammy, because we have to protect Sammy. That's who Remick is coming after.
Exactly, right?
Exactly.
And that's the context of that is given at the beginning of the film when we tell you what a griot is and why griots are so significant, not just to West African culture, but to Southern Black culture as well. Because our musicians, our writers, our MCs, that's what they are. They are griots, and they are the ones who document our victories, our triumphs, and our lessons that need to be learned. And to see that played out on screen, like, you have these moments in your life where validation is given for thoughts and concepts that you have, and that was validation for me to see that on screen. My sister actually called me after she saw the movie, and she was like, that scene, Jamil, like you've explained that to people.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah. And so that was that was like my first knee-jerk reaction coming out of the film, was just a lot of pieces that was put in the film was just validation for things that have been said, not just by myself, but by a lot of people that are bathed in hip hop culture and wanted for hip hop culture to be respected and revered for what it truly is. Just I like digging more deep into the film. I appreciate how African spirituality was honored, celebrated, and revered, and honored, celebrated, and revered in this film. This little guy. And how African spirituality was literally utilized as what essentially saved everyone in this film, whether you believed in it and held true to it as your faith, or whether it was something that you looked at as, and I'm speaking as the characters, whether you looked at it as something that you held true as your faith, or whether you looked at it as something that's nonsense. It was essentially what put everybody who survived in the space that they survived in, was relying on this thing that Annie brings into the circle of the friends or the family, so to speak. How important is it for this spiritual walk that as we get into the later years that this film is based in, as we get into the later years of life, this is a spiritual walk that has been castrated and demonized. But how important is it for us to watch it be celebrated and honored in the way that it should be on film? How important is that? I'm gonna start with that question. I'm gonna start with you, Haley.
So yes, right. As a deep Southern sister who's raised where we didn't name hoodoo for what it was, but we practiced for what it was, and continue to. And I mean, I'm out the Kojic church, so anybody who knows, you know. Yeah, Ryan's looking like Jesus. Yeah, like it run a little.
I have a feeling. I was baptized Catholic, so. And they take a similar approach to things that aren't Christianity.
Yep. It's
absolutely part of the colonization process.
It is. And the fact that we deeply use, our folks used what they had to get it done. They didn't need all of the newfangled concepts and things like that. It was so important to me to see that on screen and to, with that, not see someone who looked like me to be the practitioner also. Like, right. I feel like when people do bring up hoodoo heritage, then they want to dress it up and everybody looks like Marie Laveau. And that's not what it is. They look like me. They look
or
like
Tituba.
Yeah, exactly. They look like
the supposed. If you watch American Horror Story, Coven season 3, still my favorite.
Thank you.
Tituba was the ancestor to the Black witches in the Coven.
Yeah, they all look like that, but we look like regular black, not, I don't want to say regular
Exactly.
black, we all, but we look like we your everyday, we your aunties, we your grannies, we your sisters.
They were trying to make Annie his mother, which was pissing me off.
I don't know.
I'm like, what part of that? That's not
that is forever. It's the socialization in our word. It's the mamification within our society of dark skin, full figure, plus size Black women.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely ecstatic to see them so romantically like entrapped. And you can tell she had that man wrapped around her finger. Like, yes, this is what it looks like. I do want to say also though, and then I kind of feel like I got to move around the city. But the other thing is, it was important to me to see that and to hear the Irishmen say, this was pushed upon us by our oppressors. That prayer right there ain't doing what you think it's supposed to do. Like, it's very comforting. Yep, it sure is. And then moving along, and it's like, oh, when you think about it, it wasn't holy water that they used. He was baptized by the damn vampire. It was the regular everyday things that you could find around.
The garlic.
And when the
garlic was a theme, and that's a theme throughout a lot of vampire movies. I appreciated that.
Absolutely. And even Gregory bags ain't made out of a bunch of different things that you can't necessarily just find. It is in the essence and the power of the person who actually builds that bag for protection for the person. So, and then it has to be reworked and everything. But that's y'all go get some books or something. He can't give everything away to you. But that is really, really important. And that's why I'm like, spirituality and the linkage of that, and not making Christianity the savior instead of seeing all of that. Like, I was like, wow, this is so great. And it's so deeply true and deeply connected and full. Yeah. And Ryan, you just posted something about the being invited in. Like, even now Bonnie. But even being invited in within, I'm not talking to you, within, when you think about possession, in African spirituality, and even in Christianity and everything, you invite the spirit in. And it had to be the same thing with them damn vampiric hates. Right?
Like, and then you put a pin in that. Like, you brought up hoodoo, but it also made me think of Santeria. Cuba. It's called Regla de Ocha. Like, and how it merged Yoruba traditions and how it was vilified, and like and voodoo in Haiti, like it traveled, and even in New Orleans, the supernaturalness of that city. And me having been a huge fan of Anne Rice, New Orleans was a whole character in all of her books, right? And you had to be invited in even in her books, and just the way in which even that's layered. Like, we never invited white folks. Like, how nice we've been. Like, and our willingness to help. And like, we didn't invite white folks in. They just came and took. And so there's layers to that too, even though like vampires as colonizers, like there was a permission structure there. But like historically, they just come and take shit or burn our things down. Like, even when we're self-sufficient, minding our own business. Tulsa, the Ocoee massacre, like Rosewood, it's almost like a jealousy thing. No, you need us.
And that's the layered piece to the invitation of the vampires. Like, when it's just the three, when it's Remick and the two other white vampires, like they can't come in. They can't come into the juke joint unless they're invited in. And there's a double, and it's a double entendre of that, of them understanding, hey, as these vampire haints, we can't come in the first place until they invite us in. And then for the Black people, it's like, we not finna invite y'all in, because the moment we invite y'all in, not even knowing y'all vampires, but if we invite y'all in as the whites, if something pop off and you all are and we become the aggressors, you go back, and now we all die. Not realizing that the moment y'all walk out, once Mary does what she does to Stack, the moment y'all walk out, y'all about to die. Like,
ooh, the weaponization of white womanhood and she got to be in both worlds.
Whoa.
The risk that is to us Black folks when you enter our spaces. There's a level of patriarchy to that with white men and their white women.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I just came here to enjoy the blues. And I'm like, girl, if you don't get your ass out that juke joint, you gonna get us all. I'm up here talking to this girl. You gonna get us all killed.
All killed. All of us.
Because you want to hang out with the Blacks and be cool. Hip hop much?
So I got to go 20,000 leagues deep a little bit, right? Everything you said is spot on from a Black American Western civilization adjacent concept. But when I say 20,000 leagues deep, and I talk about this thing being African-centered, you have to understand and appreciate that all the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, were first practiced and first ridiculed by African people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was vilified by the whites then that these Black people were practitioners.
Or that we had spirituality at all.
Right. Of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all of them.
The Moors.
There are literal points in history in which Black people, African people, were killed for practicing all three of the Abrahamic faiths. Then you tie into the fact that you have African tribal religions that have always existed, that predate, most civilizations around ancestor veneration that we talk about, that eventually morphs into things like hoodoo, voodoo, Santeria, all very Black, all very spiritual. Like, that's like when I'm hearing all these folks talk about, well, where should Black people fall? Should Black Christians go see this movie, et cetera, et cetera, all these weird hot takes. And it's like,
like the lady getting up in the movie theater.
I need y'all to understand, it's always been us. Like all these, the type of Christianity sold to Black people in the midst of antebellum slavery is not the Christianity that Black folks practiced on the continent predating slavery.
And Jesus is not white.
And a lot of people don't appreciate that, because if you go to Tunisia, right now, you can take tours of where early Christians had to practice their religion in caves.
Yep.
Because the Roman Empire was trying to outlaw Christianity, right? You can look at
orthodoxy in Ethiopia, Orthodox,
but the same notion of Judaism. If we're going to make the argument that early Hebrews had to leave Egypt, then what you're basically saying is that early Hebrews were Black people who weren't buying into the traditional religion of that space, right? And then we know the history of Islam, right? The reason I want to emphasize that is that in the storytelling that Ryan Coogler brings to this space, he's talking about taking ownership over the whole thing, Black people. Like,
yeah,
it's all a part of our cultural. You know, when Delta Slim's talking about we brought blues with us.
Yeah.
And
the banjo is ours.
Right. And you raised
Rhyane Giddens talks about the banjo.
Right. And you raised this point earlier, Jamil, like it's a thing. Like we carry this stuff in our DNA, in our stories, in everything that we do. We brought it here. And then let's talk about hip hop. It was repackaged and then sold back to us in a very irresponsible way. And my problem with Black folks in this moment, just like in every other moment in kind of like the history of the last 200 years, is you don't see yourself reflected in the origin story of these things. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you appreciate the fact that you were the origin of these things,
cradle of civilization,
you look at it a whole lot different. And then you don't get mad at the Muslim brother. You don't get mad at the Jewish brother. You don't get mad at the Christian brother, whatever denomination. And you damn sure don't get mad at the practitioners of African tribal religions. Because here's the crazy part about it. Just Black funerals alone are our ancestor veneration. We celebrate death vastly different than our white counterparts do.
Yeah. Oh, especially New Orleans.
And especially New Orleans, but just in general.
Yeah.
When we talk about celebration of life, we talk about repast, we talk about
even
all these things.
Yeah.
This is African-centered at its origin because we believe that we have to set a pathway for our ancestors to reach wherever they need to go. And this is fundamentally and deeply African in nature. The last thing I would say, to the point around Remick and trying to be invited in, what I need Black folks to walk away from, even at the most simple form, stop inviting everybody to the damn cookout.
Listen.
Like, if that's not the message that you walk away from this with, when we talk about the notion of being invited in, we are a deeply spiritual people. And when we invite violence into our spaces, when we invite disregard into our spaces, when we try to hope and wish that people see us as human beings and say that if we invite them into our spaces, maybe they'll view us different. Right. That ain't it. Like, displace the negativity at the end of the day. Like, let them genuinely come in with good intentions before you invite them in, and not on some superficiality, not on some nonsense around how we can go along to get along. Respect the space that I'm in. When I tell you to leave, leave. And if you decide to circle back with the best of intentions. Otherwise, you're never going to come in. So I'm talking about all those folks who arbitrarily will be like, so-and-so gets invited to the cookout because they know how to rap. So-and-so gets invited to the cookout because they know how to make mac and cheese. Man, be careful who you invite inside your house, your home, and your safe spaces, because
sheep's clothing.
they will ultimately make spaces unsafe. But also, the thing about the Mary character, because there's been a lot of push-pull, is at the end of the day, we didn't invent the one-drop rule.
No.
But the one-drop rule existed. So for folks who were white adjacent, white passing, they made an active decision, right? They could make an active decision to leave Black culture.
Yep.
Or they can make an active decision to continue. And we see a multitude of examples of folks who could have been white passing holding us down. Prime example, Walter White, white passing white man who was one of the leaders of the NAACP. He could have easily been over on the other side.
Adam Clayton Powell, wasn't he another brother?
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Most folks forget Frederick Douglass is biracial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, could have easily made that transition. And you brought up Rosewood. Part of what incited the rage in Rosewood was the fact that Sylvester Carrier was married to a very, very fair-skinned woman who lived in Rosewood and chose to live among deeply dark-skinned Black people. And so what gave people additional rage was this belief that Sylvester Carrier was carrying on with some white woman. So the Mary character is a complex one when you think about the role of biracial people in American history and how deeply that runs. You know, it's something to unpack there. I definitely don't think she should have gone out and talked to them folks.
Well, again, that's what I was like, okay. You gonna go out?
Like, I'm gonna go out. Yeah. I'm gonna go outside and talk to them and see if we can get some money out of them.
I could probably make some changes. Mine, I'm like, girl, I will bend your fingers backwards.
Right.
Like all types of.
Say about Big Lotto.
Listen,
literally,
because
the
layer to that is that white people don't distinguish.
I feel like
and try to force you to pick a side.
Yeah, I feel like it was because of her whiteness that made her super susceptible to them. Not just her like wanting to go get a job done, let's get some money. But as soon as he started talking that, you know, be a part and do the things, you saw her guard drop and she said, my mama did just recently die.
Yeah, telling all her business.
And I was like, oh, come on, White. The White jumped out.
Yep.
Big Lotto. She was in the building.
Snitching on herself.
That's all I got to say about it.
But listen, when she pulled that pistol though, like
she didn't know the vampire could fly.
She got pulled in, but she was like, wait.
So that vampire did his floaty flying thing. Come on now. You didn't even assess the whole situation. You gotta assess.
But the thing about it is that
horror movie lore, Dwight. I'm like, I'm asking questions.
The thing that makes her complicated in my side is, and I get Stack's position to want to keep the Black collective safe because she was white passing, how this was going to play out. Yeah. But she had familiarity with the folks. And so higher order thinking says, had she been enveloped more deeply in the Black culture and not been forced to go live with the white man in Arkansas, I think her antenna would have been a little further up than they were. She was on some, I can navigate between both worlds, because she had been consistently pushed out by the twins like, yo, you about to get us jacked up. But she really wanted to rock and live amongst those folks. And so that's why I'm a little torn, because according to the American experiment, she could have easily been Black.
I mean, and in the end, did she not? I mean, I keep saying Big Lotto trying to be funny, but at the end of the day, for real, in the end, she got to live this hip hop life in the 90s, like as authentically as like I'm with the niggas now. Like she living. She just one of the light-skinned sisters as far as they concerned. So
it's really a question of Lotto versus Doja Cat.
She's more of a I'll give her more Lotto than anything.
Yeah, Doja Cat was dating a whole
I think another piece to the film that is a really layered theme that Ryan Coogler addresses in some of his interviews is the theme of ownership. The theme of ownership. The theme of ownership is a really strong theme within this film. Them being able to own, them being able to be owners of that land that Club Juke sits on, as well as Club Juke itself. Sammy being able to own and hold his music and own his voice. Of course, you know, the culture vultures, or the culture vampires, if you will, trying to come through and basically come through and try to own our stuff. You know, Remick looking Sammy in the face and being like, you know, I want your songs, I want your stories, and you'll have mine as well. Because that's also the thing, being a person that's really engulfed in hip hop culture. That's another thing. They want to take your stories and your image, but in the same breath, they want you to put a little sprinkle of them in there as well, to kind of like water it down and assimilate it. That
Elvis,
yes, very much mass appealing. You
Jimmy
know,
Iovine, Clive Davis,
Guru and Primo very much spoke against. And it's just wild to me. It's just wild to me how much ownership is a real solid theme in this. Even with the Asian people in the film, being able to own two different shops, one specifically for the Black people and one specifically for the white people, is like, is like it's very telling. Like, it's a very telling thing, but it's also reality. Cause like, you know, after watching the film the first time, I go on to Instagram and I go on AJ Plus, and there's this whole like mini documentary about this. And you find out that, you know, Ryan Coogler saw the documentary, reached out to the person that actually did the documentary, and ended up having her come in as a consultant for the film, so she could help out a lot more in making sure that the Mississippi Delta Chinese story was told. It's also very telling that Lisa's in the building in the juke joint, and you know the nonsense and the madness is going on, and she looks at her husband and she said, "Listen, baby, we need to go get these keys, because we came to help with the party. We didn't come to help with the struggle." I hope y'all caught that. We came to help with the party. We didn't come to help.
Yeah, buddy, I caught it real good.
Yeah.
We came to help with the party and not the struggle. Right. So we should leave the struggle, because the party and the good times is no longer a thing that's happening. And as you go outside to go get the keys, husband, you now become
you
become a part of the struggle, because now you got like everybody else.
Something else you said, Jamil, when you talk about the music business and ownership, is how Black artists are like a Angie Stone, or even with Money Long, like feeling like having ownership over their masters. Chance the Rapper having to buy back Anita Baker's because of the shitty contracts they were giving Black artists. And then like the accusations of payola. Like, and where the artist sits at on the totem pole in the music business. Meanwhile, these record companies are making millions off of our music. Colonization of our music, even as a business model. Like 100%. Rosetta Tharpe, for example, finally getting her just due in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog was her song. It wasn't Elvis's song. Or the stories about Elvis peeping in on Black churches to hear Black gospel music.
It wasn't even black church. Yeah. He would be in juke joints.
Yes.
Having whole...
He would be on Bill Street. That's when they called him Elvis the Pelvis.
Right. While you're watching
absorbing Black music.
watching Little Richard, having conversations,
and I think
literally extracting Black creativity.
movie that really kind of told it like it was for me when it comes to Elvis, because those of us from Memphis have a complicated relationship with him, is Vegas. Because on a basic level, I remember Lisa Marie Presley saying, being intentional about what was in that movie, she said, my father absolutely knew, and I'm paraphrasing, the role that Black people played in his life around music.
Right.
And that's the first time for me I've heard her ever vocalize that. And so that really triggered something from a music perspective to Jamil about ownership. Like the fact that our greats are having a hard time getting their master recordings back.
Mm-hmm. And for me, going back to the piece of ownership and how if you don't line up and play by their rules, they will try to demonize you because of how you want to hold on to your stories, hold on to your stories and hold on to your views. It's a nice segue into digging into the actual deal that Ryan Coogler was able to receive from this film. So Ryan Coogler has essentially literally had this film written as a script since they were doing post editing on Creed 1. He introduced it to he introduced it to Dane at every studio that he came across as he was doing films. Couldn't get it at that time because you're not a proven you're not a proven draw. So we do Creed 1. Creed 1 is a box office hit. We do Black Panther 1. Black Panther 1 box office hit. We turn around, produce Creed 2, box office hit. Produce Judas and the Black Messiah, streaming and box office hit. Creed 3, another box office hit. Black Panther 2. So by now you're this draw. And you can go back and introduce this to Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers still doesn't believe in the film for real. Because they literally tell him, okay, we're going to give you this $90 million budget. But if the film flops, you got to pay this $90 million back. And he was like, okay, cool. So when the film succeeds, this is what I already want in the contract that we about to sign. I want you all to give me final cut of the film so we don't have to see the cut on screen and the director's cut. What we see on screen is the director's cut because I have final cut of the film, complete creative control of the film. I also want first run of the money that's coming in because in most cases for directors, they don't start making their money until the studio recoup their money. So this 161 that's international and 121 that's domestic, Ryan getting some of that money too. But the key piece to this that has everybody in Hollywood in such an uproar and what ties the whole ownership situation in for the film is the fact that in 25 years, he has complete ownership of this film. Hollywood is trying to make it seem like this is a deal that's unheard of. It's seven other directors that have gotten this deal already.
Right.
I feel like Tom Cruise has a similar deal with his Mission Impossible movies.
Exactly. But the last real director that got this deal was Quentin Tarantino when he did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The difference between Quentin's deal and Ryan's deal is that Quentin gets to own that film in 10 years, whereas Ryan gets to own his in 25. We all know we all sitting here know the reason why Variety magazine, the New York Times, and all these other Hollywood publications is calling this deal the death of Hollywood. It's not the death of Hollywood. You've given this to Spielberg. You've given this to Tarantino. That
James
interview
Cameron.
Spike Lee about this on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. Spike was like, I've never gotten a deal. I've never gotten this deal. I'm extremely happy that Ryan got this deal because I've never gotten it. And we all know why I've never gotten this deal. And that's very telling of the ownership piece within this film, because he said in an interview, he said, this may be the only film that I ever asked for a deal of this magnitude, but it makes sense because one of the central themes in the film is ownership. And how can I talk about ownership if I don't even attempt to ask for them to allow me to own my own film after a certain point, Dwight.
So I'm glad you raised this point, because this is the modus operandi of white supremacy, right? So tying it back, like that documentary about Delta Chinese folks, the missing component, if no one's ever seen it, is white banks only giving loans to Asian people with the exclusive understanding that you can only operate that business in Black communities. Like, that was the mandate. They were like, we're not going to give this deal to Black people, right? We're not going to give them loans to open stores in their own community. We will, however, give you this deal with the understanding that you have to operate in the Black community. So the telling thing in the white store versus the Black store was that both stores were owned by the Chows, and both stores were technically built in the Black community. It just so happened that on the other side of the street, where the white folks chose to shop, was them making the active decision that this is going to be the store we go to. So now you have to exclusively sell to us, even though you are sitting in the heart of the Clarksdale Black community. So, full circle moment, when Ryan's now pushing for ownership, it is almost on some, I'm telling the story of the history of my people, and now it's time to get that vindication. Now it's time to get this kind of like reparatory mindset working, because I cannot tell a story of Black ownership if I'm not pushing for Black ownership. But at the same time, I recognize, and this is kind of like putting a mirror up to Hollywood, don't think I don't get how y'all used to do us. You know what I'm saying? Prime example, look no further than the deal they made with Hogwood around the mill to begin with. You know, they said at the very beginning, say, listen, if I see your people coming around here, it's going to be a problem. To which Hogwood was like, Clan been out for a while. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're over here like you really going to piss on my leg and tell me that it's raining right now?
Yes, they were.
That's how you.
That scene with Remit.
Right.
Oh yeah,
and
we don't do
like,
that anymore.
And it was like
playing robe in the background.
You know what I'm saying? And the whole, and what I appreciated was they were like, that's why we got the trunk.
That part.
Yeah.
We got to go to the trunk if y'all show up. And they clearly had to go to the trunk because but it's like, y'all been doing 360 deals on hip hop artists since the very beginning. You got folks who have made 50, 11 albums, no control of their masters, can't make no wealth. You've extracted wealth. You got modern day hip hoppers trying to give health insurance to old school hip hop heads.
Yeah.
Because y'all done cut them off that deep. Y'all still own them technically under contract because they didn't, quote unquote, complete their 3 or 4 or 5 record deal with you. So you're holding them hostage from entertaining another person. They can't perform their music. I mean, it's messy. And it's always been messy and always been directed at Black folks. So big shout out to Ryan Coogler for saying, I can't
on one... a Lecrae conversation.
I can't on one hand do it. And then y'all not show love.
On music.
It's very telling to me. So this is coming from somebody who is an actual MC. This is coming from someone whose roots are in Christian hip hop. Yeah. It's very telling to me how you can say that one of the things you had a problem with was when Delta Slim says in the film, the blues is what we brought over, not that stuff that they gave us. And you say in an interview, you say first on a Instagram Threads post, and then in an interview that somebody did with you about said Instagram Threads post, you say that that's a problem for you. When all of us who have done hip hop music, and I said this on Instagram Threads too, all of us who have done hip hop music within the church, whether we were really true to the culture or whether we was using hip hop as a quote unquote witnessing tool, knows that the church bastardized and demonized hip hop for most of the late 90s and the beginnings of the 2000s. They ain't really started letting us come up in the church for real to spit these rhymes until 2016, 2017. I was there. I'm a participant of this. So like, don't tell me, bro, that you got a problem with this when hip hop is a very extension. It's our blues. It's our era's blues. So don't tell me you got a problem. Like, don't spit in my face and then try to apologize to me later for spitting in my face, knowing that you purposely are spitting in my face. Because when you start talking about, because you was on the train of, I'm a Christian that's embracing hip hop culture, when they tried to dismiss you, and when I say they, I mean white evangelicals. When white evangelicals tried to dismiss you from the church after you wrote that tweet about Mike Brown, they almost didn't want to have anything to do with you. Your whole money stream was about to dry up because everybody knows that Lecrae and Reach Records, they whole money stream is white evangelical youth events. We all know that. All of us know that. Your money stream was about to dry up, bro, as soon as you wrote that Mike Brown tweet. And then a few years later, you get on your podcast with Pastor John Piper, and you allow Pastor John Piper to say on your podcast that slavery was a blessing. Again, don't spit in my face and then try to apologize like the spit ain't still there.
Like you still like do it.
Right, like exactly. Like it's very telling that. And then the other thing that he says is that yes, elements of Christianity was used to oppress and colonize us, but was Christianity?
We couldn't even sit in the same part of the church if we were in there at all. The Methodist Church still couldn't condemn racism, and that's recently.
Was the full religion of Christianity an oppressive tool of colonization? No. And then he goes and then he brings in the pieces of Coptic Christianity in Ethiopia, Tanzanian Christians, like Christians within North and West Africa.
Yeah.
My God, like, again, this is another don't spit in my face and then act like you didn't when I like, I'm Cat Williams. We can see you. Like, don't spit in my face when
that's hella lazy. That's hella lazy historical context on the part of the play. And that's what I really hate about that, is they will point to like Ethiopia or Tanzania. And the thing about the Tanzanian Christianity is that is colonial Christianity.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. What I'm talking about is origin practice.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is like, sir, don't try to couple the two together.
Yeah.
They brought the Bible into colonial Africa to exploit Black people the same way they exploited enslaved Black people in this country.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to disconnect that from the Black people who were literally killed for practicing Christianity at its onset.
Yeah.
And there's
and
a
my
distinction.
God, you from the South.
Right.
So don't insult.
Right.
Don't insult your ancestors like that, because you insulting your ancestors by saying that this is a situation that we weren't fully colonized. This religion didn't fully colonize us because we actually started the very religion over in North and West Africa. Not the stuff they gave us when we hit these lands. Not that. This is something else.
As they're literally having conversations about the slave Bible that existed, that literally
that's the only thing we were allowed to read.
Ripped out chapters.
They didn't want us reading.
And so that goes back to, and so that brings us to modern times, and the fact that white evangelicals now have infiltrated our policy spaces. White evangelicals have now infiltrated infiltrated our political spaces.
Mm-hmm.
They voted in Trump. They voted in DeSantis. You all voted
Project 2025 got them written all over it. Especially when it comes to our women's bodies.
And the sad part about this is that they will have Black Christian faces to come and be the ones to speak to you about how, well, this isn't that bad, and you shouldn't believe when people who operate in Black liberation theology tell you that we were colonized by this very religion and that we should now use this as a tool. We should start picking the things out to use as a tool to liberate us. No, we're already liberated. We're liberated by the blood of Jesus. Miss me with that. Because there are so many things that
we see you, Kim Daniels.
Like, listen. We see you, Kim. We see you, Miss. Thank God. Thank God for slavery. You helped to usher in us being overcharged by Centene for $67 million, the state getting that back, and then Ron and his wife turning around and taking $10 million of that, and then putting it into dark money organizations, and those dark money PACs taking $8.5 million of that to put into a PAC to help defeat Amendment 3. Like, you ushered this in. This very damning, oppressive theology is what ushered this in. And it's mind-blowing to me. It's very mind-blowing to me. And it brings it back. And this brings it back to the movie again, to the piece of liberating salvation. And this is where I'm going with liberating salvation. Sammy, at the beginning of the movie and also at the end of the movie, we watch Sammy drive Smoke and Stat's car back to the church.
Yep.
He walks into the church, and his father is telling him to let go of the guitar. Let go of your voice. Let go of this music. Let go of this music and let go of the guitar. My sister called me when she first went and seen the movie. And one of the questions that she had for me, she was like, what is your take on the guitar scene? And this is what I said to her. Sammy wasn't finna let that guitar go.
Nope.
Because that guitar is what figuratively and literally saved him.
Saved his life.
Yep.
You looked me in my face, Dad, and you told me Jesus was going to save me. But when I prayed the Lord's Prayer, that Irish vampire looked me dead in my face and said, this ain't working. This ain't gonna...
He said, that's cute. I heard that before too.
When they oppressed my people. But the very thing that gave me my voice, the very thing that gave me my power, this guitar, is what figuratively and literally
saved my life.
Because if I don't hit Remick in the head with the guitar, then he's not stunned for a couple of seconds for smoke to come behind him and hit him with the dagger in the heart. That scene resonated with me the most because up until I was 25, 26 years old, my parents tried to do the same thing with me when it came to hip hop. And they didn't start accepting it until I got into my adult years and they understood how the culture operated, what the culture really meant, how the culture could operate in a spiritual space. And that's the one thing that I really wanted for people to take away from this is that your voice and how you present your voice can be the one thing that can either save your life or can be the one thing that can damage your life. We're seeing in real time right now how Trump with his voice and how he's operating his voice is not only damaging his life, because let's be clear, eventually this is going to damage him as well, but it's damaging other people's lives as well. But we're also seeing how so many of us as organizers, so many of us that have been liberated by what salvation looks like for us, how our voice is truly being the voice that is saving not just our lives, but a lot of the people's lives around us. And that's really what I took. From this film. Because he looked his dad in the face and he was like, listen, not only am I not going to let this guitar go, I'm out.
I mean, it reminds me of the Sam Cooke story too. Most like that transition from blues to rock and roll to R&B, even soul music, wouldn't have happened if these folks hadn't ultimately chosen secular music. It didn't mean that they lost their faith. That was the other thing too, Jamil. Like this idea that any sort of structural criticism of organized religion of any kind is some sort of denigration. That's what pissed me off with Lecrae. I'm like, what? Why? Where did you get this from? Like, science isn't here to disprove God. That's not the goal of science. But you have evangelicals out here saying, don't trust the science.
If anything, science is much more of an enhancement to show us how much God actually exists out here for real.
Yeah. And Jesus was not white. I'm sorry, guys. Y'all talk about Santa Claus, but wait till you hear about Jesus.
Right. but even further than that, I think one of the, and this is a hot take, but I'll go ahead and say it. Like Sammy at the beginning was just like, I'm working 6 days a week on this plantation. Mm-hmm. And you want me to follow in your footsteps to continue working on this plantation.
Yes.
And he's like, for all the salvation you're preaching, sir, we still on this plantation. And he's like, I got this tool.
What do we have to show for
it? This God-given tool that you don't want to acknowledge is a God-given tool.
Yes. That
could get me off this plantation. But somehow you don't want me to use it. And he's like, that is oftentimes the hypocrisy between generations, especially on the music thing, right? Where it's just like, you need to be a purist. You know, whether it was the transition from blues to rock and roll, jazz to bebop, R&B to hip hop, blues to R&B, like, it's like, wait, we can elevate this thing. What you're doing is great. I want to do it this way. Can you respect me as I take this journey? Because I'm not asking to swim in your pool. You do that. I'm saying that we can expand our creativity. We can explore other options. And to Ryan's point here, it's like, don't limit me, right? Because I'm choosing the secular over espousal of the gospel, right? Like, I can do both things. And that's to the larger Lecrae point. It's like, bro, you are too young.
Yeah.
You are too young to be out here sounding like some old head.
Gatekeeping old head back in my day.
You know what I'm saying? Not understanding the nature of context. Like
there's only one way to do a thing.
Like as those sinners, as being part of the culture, is somehow giving you some deeper, dissertation on the ills of Western religion. They're just simply saying what everybody's been saying for a while. Like, I can go to church on Sunday and still go to work on Monday. Like, it's not that complicated.
Or that change is somehow disrespectful to those that came Before us. That's always a wild narrative for me. And he basically, by the end of the movie, proves. I mean, it's Buddy Guy playing Sammy, but I mean, a lot of that is based in real experience. A lot of these blues artists,
right?
B.B. King wouldn't be B.B. King if he hadn't moved to Memphis and worked at WDIA first as a DJ. He was Riley B. King. Like, he knew that Memphis was gonna lead to other stuff, bigger things. Isaac Hayes, Memphis. That hot butter soul y'all talk about.
That part.
Stax Records.
And there is a joy in understanding how much my way of leading people to a higher calling doesn't have to look like my family members. Doesn't have to look like the OGs. I think that's like a really great that's like a really great point for us to end at on this episode. I really, really want to thank Dwight and Ryan for coming through to make sure that you all really understood the sociological as well as sociopolitical standpoint of this film, because we really, really wanted to bring that to y'all in the best way that we can. And so, as always, this is Jamil Davis as well as
DJ Hale, the one and only.
Showing y'all love and appreciation for joining us on this BLKFLA experience. As always, stay free, stay blessed, and continue to get acquainted with greatness. We are out.
You know, two there, one mind, about to bring it to you. If Revolution was a movie, I'd be theme music. Time to ignite what I spit is lighter fluid. Stepping into it, fixed rays, such a glorious design. Marching into the biggest fight of our lives. Time to spoil the revolution.